Good morning, and welcome to the Museum of the San Ramon Valley's virtual speaker series. I am Dan Dunn, the director of the museum. Last month, conservation photographers Rob Badger and Nina Winter told us of their 27 years documenting wildflowers in California and throughout the West, and shared with us some of their spectacular photos. Today, we'll be exploring the rich history of eastern Contra Costa County. Local historian, college professor, and longtime East County resident Carol Jensen will be our guide. Ms. Jensen will discuss early Native American residents, settlers, landmarks, and historical events that have shaped the eastern portion of Contra Costa County. Carol Jensen has been a native of eastern Contra Costa County. Carol is a history graduate at UC Santa Barbara and a Fulbright scholar. She delights in discovering cultural ephemera and documenting the cultural history of the area in which people lived, visited, or worked in California. Carol's the author of many books and articles on eastern Contra Costa County and a frequent speaker on the subject. Please use the chat window at the bottom of the screen for any questions that you have. Feel free to send in your questions at any time during the presentation, and we'll address them at the end. And now, it's my great pleasure to welcome in Carol Jensen. Carol?
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. Good morning, everybody. And today we're going to venture over to the morning side of Diablo. That is, we're going to just tip right in to the California Delta and right over the edge into the Great Central Valley, and specifically the San Joaquin Valley. I know many of you have visited the Brentwood, Oakley, Knightson, Bethel Island over the years, may even have family members from the area, as we certainly travel around Brentwood, around our area a lot. So I know my family has its roots in San Ramon specifically. My grandfather and grandmother lived there, and my grandfather actually built a couple buildings there in San Ramon in the early part of last century. And so I'm very pleased to join you this morning. I'm going to open up my, my PowerPoint here and make sure I have things. There we are. Have things up and in front. So any case, I'm so pleased to be with you. Today we're going to focus on not only the history of eastern Contra Costa County, but we're going to talk about what it looks like today, specifically because so many of us associate eastern Contra Costa County with U-pick, farm produce, agriculture, water skiing, Bethel Island recreation, in other words, way out there in the Far East. And even today, people will say to me, oh yeah, those cute little towns in eastern Contra Costa County, I haven't been there for years. And I go, yes, those cute little towns in eastern Contra Costa County. Yeah, Brentwood, 85,000 people. Second only to San Ramon in the county. So let's get going here this morning. First of all, we'll make sure that we know where we are. Here's our beautiful county of Contra Costa. And you can see down here in San Ramon is where we are virtually today. But we're going to go zip over here to the eastern side of the county and focus on Brentwood, Oakley, Knightson, Bethel Island, Brentwood, and Discovery Bay, both as very early townships and also as very modern and new incorporated cities. So this will be our first overall look at Contra Costa County. I should mention that for many years, the San Ramon Valley and eastern Contra Costa County were in the same supervisorial district. Mary Pifo, for example, represented your area, and she lived in Discovery Bay and represented this area as well. So agriculturally, the San Ramon Valley, Dublin, Danville, Alamo, and eastern Contra Costa have a lot in common, politically as well as agriculturally. Let's make sure that you do indeed know what we're talking about here today. In order of population, not so much today, but certainly over time, the largest communities in the area, Brentwood, Oakley, Discovery Bay, Bethel Island, Byron, and Knightson, comprise eastern Contra Costa County. At the midpoint, the 1860s, 1870s, Byron certainly was the largest town in the entire eastern end of the county and the source of its greatest agricultural wealth. Today, Brentwood stands as the largest community in Eastern County. And it would be fair to say that the entire area is so very different today than it certainly was 50 years ago. I'll confess that I graduated from Liberty Union High School in Brentwood in 1969. We laughed because there were 3 population signs going into town at that point. One said population 1,700, the other one said 2,100, and the third one said 2,300. There are now 85,000 people living in city limits, so I certainly have seen a lot of changes. So, but let's step back and find out who is living out here. We are seeing both immigration and emigration into Eastern County. This has been a community that has been populated by folks from the States. Specifically, if we think of the Bartleson Bidwell Party, which was the first overland, wasn't stage, it was a team immigrant train coming to California. Their destination was not San Jose, Monterey, or San Francisco. Their destination was indeed Brentwood. They came west at John Marsh's behest, and the western terminus of the first immigrant trail across the US is indeed John Marsh's adobe as the Bartleson Bidwell Party arrives prior to the gold rush. Since then, and particularly in Oakley, we have seen large immigrant populations of Italians, Spanish, and Portuguese, specifically those that are taking the opportunity to be laborers, contract laborers, moving to Hawaii to work in the sugar plantations for a period of time, and then given a ticket to the next closest port, which of course is San Francisco. And from there, in the case of the Portuguese communities, Half Moon Bay, Hayward, San Leandro, and from there out to Oakley. So we have a very large population of hardworking Europeans and Southern Europeans coming to Oakley as an example, immigrating from the old world to the new world for the same reasons all Americans are here, for opportunity. In this case, the Rodriguez family, the gentleman on the left comes in from Spain. His wife is a Californio who had been in the area as early on as you can imagine. And so they find themselves in Oakley, they marry, and they actually are able to acquire property in the Oakley area, the American dream. So immigration and emigration is key to populating eastern Contra Costa County from all over the world. Let's take a look at what the county looks like as it's essentially 10 years after California's statehood, and Contra Costa County being one of the first counties in the state. At that time, Alameda County and Contra Costa County were combined. Later, 1860, Alameda breaks off separately from Contra Costa. But at the time, we're looking at a little over 5,000 people in the entire county. Wow. 5,000 to 18,000 in 40 years is not much. Gets up to 100,000. Just sort of gives you an idea how really small these little communities are out there in East County in 1950. And when I graduate, we're looking at 2,300, 2,700. We're not going to see these booms until much later. And that in part is going to be where we will end our story, but we'll start it with these early days. As a tidbit towards today, let's take a look of what we're looking at today compared to really only 150 years ago, 170 years ago. We have 1.16 million people living in the county. It's huge. San Ramon, 86,000. Guess what? Brentwood is just a little smaller than San Ramon. I always thought San Ramon was such a cute little small town. I guess you thought Brentwood was a cute little small town too. San Ramon, of course, is the home to Bishop Ranch and the corporate entities that drive the county of Contra Costa's economy, Chevron and the IT industry, and of course, Pac Bell was out there at one point as well. But we share a lot in common, again, not just population. Oakley is right in there too. 43,000 people, booming like crazy. Discovery Bay, that is going to be much bigger, much quicker because they've just opened Delta Coves, and that is going to change the entire personality of Bethel Island. Bethel Island, 2,000 people. Count it. The number of people living at Bethel Island is going up by tens every day. Exponential growth. Byron is still a little town. And good old Knightson. Knightson, where there are more horses than there are people. Yes, they did a census out there. There's more horses in Knightson than people. And it's the last, that and Discovery Bay, Bethel Island are the last communities, original communities in Eastern Contra Costa that are not incorporated. They are still townships and they are governed under the municipal advisory councils, the MAC, in their communities under the direction or guidance of the supervisors. But let's take a look at agriculture. Take a good look, folks. You go, okay, well, they're threshing grain, but look carefully, particularly look here. Here is our last vestige, if you will, of the indigenous people who lived in Eastern Contra Costa County. You are hard-pressed to find a Native American descendant in East County today. However, they are still there, and I certainly went to high school with many. These are Native Americans. These are not Hispanics. These are Native Americans from the era, and this is grain threshing, essentially 1910, all horse-drawn. A word on the Native Americans. Native Americans in East County area are part of the Bay Miwok group, language, the Julpin language group. And you find Native Americans here very late in the Spanish and Mexican era because it's a long way from Mission San Jose. It's paradise. Hunting, gathering, that probably took 20 minutes. All you have to do is reach out and pick up a tule or some clams or crawdads. The Delta is literally a Native American paradise. And as such, we see just night and day difference from life as John Marsh found it in 1836 when he purchased Rancho Los Maganos and found Native Americans suffering from smallpox and runaways from Mission San Jose, who he employed on his rancho. The agriculture in East County initially is all dry farming. There is no irrigation. It's dry farming. All the grains you'll see out there today, of course, are European imports. They are not the native grasses of the area. The good news is you can sow wheat, oats, and alfalfa, and it will grow, and you can harvest it, and there you are. It's a marvelous starting way to farm. And you can see, look at this, 20 horses, 4 abreast, in fact, more than 20. Huge operations. This is agriculture in eastern Contra Costa County today. Yes, it's U-pick, folks. Yeah. Life has dramatically changed. The history of East County, as far as agriculture is concerned, has been commercial, that is wholesale agriculture. You have oftentimes hundreds, if not thousands of acres. You are harvesting, you are selling to the large exporters or canners or producers for the national or international market. These days, that is all gone. There are two wholesale, or essentially two wholesale, that is commercial farmers still farming at that level in East County. It's S&G Farms and Dwelly Farms. They sell to Safeway. All the other farms are essentially U-pick. Harvest Time U-pick is still going strong. It is the oldest U-pick operation this side of the Alleghenies in New York State. U-pick in California begins in 1944, and it's still going strong. Yeah. There is a farm, actually it's an apple orchard in New York State in the Allegheny Mountains, and it dates earlier than the U-pick operations in Brentwood. So yes, there's still commercial agriculture there, but two farmers are the exception to the rule. So this is how you get to farm in Brentwood. It is retail. Retail. Many farmers will harvest and they make a living going to farmers markets. So welcome to modern Brentwood. We are, of course, known for our millions of miles of waterways. Here we have Japanese farmers out there in the eastern edge of the county in Byron, literally looking at the russet potato crop. They're loading it onto the Fort Bragg, which is a stern wheeler, which would have gone up Indian Slough, this is Point of Timber, to load the crops from either side. The nice thing about the area out there in the far east is it is swampland and overflowed lands that have been made into land as opposed to Tule marshland. So you don't have to irrigate potatoes. It's soft land, they grow beautifully. Idaho and their famous russets, guess what? Russets are really an Eastern County activity, thanks to Luther Burbank and the swamplands of East County. A moment on levees. Many individuals are not too sure about what a levee is. Bear in mind, in East County, all the land that you see out there, essentially Bethel Island, most of Oakley, Byron, are swampland and overflowed lands that were made available by the federal government to the state of California and sold very inexpensively to those that would improve the land. The improvement meant put up a berm, improve it to make a levee. Then you pump out the water from the inside. When you're going along the Sacramento River or out there on the San Joaquin, and you see pumps and huge pipes going from the levee down into the river, folks, that's not for pumping water out of the river to irrigate the land. That is pumps that are keeping the land above river level. It's basically a gigantic sump pump to keep that land from being reclaimed by the river and nature. So this is key in terms of fertility, water, lack of irrigation, because it can grow naturally. Later on, we see the introduction of the clamshell dredge that is pulling up the proverbial muck and dropping it on the levees to make them taller. And then, of course, now we see the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers putting riprap all along these levees to ensure, for example, that Stockton continues to be an inland port, and similarly, Sacramento is an inland port, navigable by ocean-going ships. Clamshell dredging is brought to us and almost a monopoly industry for the Azorean Portuguese that immigrated to Rio Vista in eastern Contra Costa County. If you hear the name Dutra, go up to Rio Vista where you will find the Dutra Dredging Museum. The Dutra family not only did a lot of clamshell dredging in the Delta, but they also dredged out Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. Can you imagine being towed across the Pacific on a clamshell dredging barge? Well, that was the case. So waterways in the Delta is so key to Eastern Contra Costa's prosperity and history. Our history of agriculture in East County is not the proverbial, 40 acres and a mule at all. Our history in agriculture in California is agribusiness from day one. John Marsh claims 40,000 acres in East County as his. After the federal land courts are done with his family, it's reduced to only 14,000 acres. And later, the Balfour Guthrie Company, which is traders, developers from Great Britain, acquire the Marsh property in aggregate, not all 14,000, but a little over 12,000 at a relatively inexpensive price. You imagine 12,000 acres for under $1 million today? You couldn't even buy a house in eastern Contra Costa County for $1 million today. Rancho Los Maganos, as owned by Marsh's daughter, Alice Marsh. And here you can see the beginnings of roads in the area. And I'll point out to you my favorite, from the Marsh Adobe and Marsh Home out to Byron is a trail going out to the Salt Lick. Yeah, Byron Hot Springs as the Salt Lick for John Marsh. And John Marsh, being a cattleman, has 50,000 head of cattle. Now that's my kind of agriculture. If you're going to be a cattleman, 50,000 head is the way to go. Today, we oftentimes think of Balfour Guthrie as a packing shed, Hillside Farms, or Brentwood Irrigated Farms. This building is still there. Used to be a lumber yard. Now it's an automobile repair place, but Hillside Farms was their label for fresh packing. Fresh packing. In this case, these ladies are packing peaches. Balfour Guthrie really invests in the community of Brentwood. They build the, this isn't the Brentwood Hotel, this is the Hotel Brentwood. Yes, they, there's a little pretension in this, yes, but this is a fabulous art, not quite Art Deco, it's moved on. We're transitioning in, or away from Art Nouveau rather, moving into Art Deco. This image is taken in the 40s, and you can see the influence of the Art Deco movement here in this beautiful hotel. Also banking. The Bank of Brentwood. Yes, there was a Bank of Brentwood. It's really a, can I call it a front for Balfour Guthrie? Balfour Guthrie had their fingers in everything. They are a silent partner, a major partner, a hidden partner. So much of their involvement in the West Coast and in South America is as a shareholder in other companies. By the way, the Balfour Company is still around today. The original Balfour Company is still in Great Britain, and they're still major traders. They're the equivalent of the East India Company that we knew about or we read about and studied when we were children. So it wasn't just the East India Company, there was also Balfour. And so East India is gone, but Balfour is still around. Huge, huge export trade company. Brentwood Hotel? No, the Brentwood Hotel is long gone, but the city of Brentwood now gives a tip of the hat to its architectural heritage by building a brand new city hall. Yes, this is City Hall Brentwood. Not exactly a little town anymore. The city hall is huge, but I'll tell you a secret. The third percent. And the first floor is mostly community rooms. The second floor is where the city hall offices are primarily. And the third floor is waiting for expansion. Yeah, city of Brentwood is planning ahead. This is Brentwood. What happened to the little town? Well, if you look carefully, these buildings are indeed those original buildings left from 1910 and beyond. This is the main drag. Probably, well, I don't want to say the Chevrolets here are the oldest things in Brentwood, but pretty close. If you took a walking tour of Brentwood, we would see literally who has occupied all these original structures since they were built in the 1910s and 1920s. This is really the city that Balfour Guthrie built. But you can see This is a modern community, historic buildings repurposed. Brentwood did not tear it all down. They went, well, this is cool. Let's use these historic buildings and create the environment that is so very welcoming. Today, or rather this year, is Brentwood's 75th anniversary of incorporation. Yes, 1948, Brentwood incorporates. Of course, it's established much earlier. Brentwood is the ancestral home of John Marsh, hence the area is called Brentwood. So our roots literally go back to 1836. But cityhood gives us another excuse to celebrate, and that is this year. And there'll be a lot of activities. Come on out and join us. But just a moment back into our heritage, a couple things I want to point out, because this picture actually is very telling. This is a tractor. Okay, Carol, we know that. It's a Caterpillar tractor. Guess what? The Caterpillar, that is the tractor, is invented out here in Holt. And it is designed specifically for these peatlands between Brentwood and Stockton. You can't take a hard tire, narrow-wheeled tractor out there. It will sink in the peat. And so these tracks are invented first for purposes of tilling the soil there in the Delta. By the way, if you're familiar with the first tanks, which are developed in Great Britain for World War I, those tanks are essentially a tractor. They are a tractor just like this, with steel plating and a gun. That's what makes them a tank. This tractor apparatus you can thank Balfour Guthrie for as well. They exported tractors to Australia, transshipped them to Great Britain, and there they were developed in secret as Churchill's secret weapon during World War I as a tank. Are they called tanks? The bill of lading shipping this thing to Australia said it was a tank. At the time, America was neutral, and military stores were not allowed to be exported at that time to Great Britain. So this was smuggled to Great Britain. What are they doing here? Again, another invention. They are ripping asparagus land. And this ripper is developed up there in Isleton by the Chinese community, which essentially is responsible for the bounty of asparagus production here in East County, Solano County, Sacramento County, San Joaquin County, essentially all the way up to Sacramento. It is the original true Delta product. Canning, here we go. This is what we do best. There's full employment in our communities. There's so much employment that in most cases, you have to bring in contract labor to do the work, whether it is initially Chinese, Japanese, Sikhs, Filipinos, and later Mexicans. Mexicans are coming in last as part of the Bracero program. Full employment, always, always. And in the case of Orwood Track, where some of you have water skied, this is a huge asparagus packing plant. And by the way, Hickmont, as well as Bayside Cannery, they are basically Chinese-owned canneries. Hickmont is basically the front man, because as you know, there's a lot of discrimination against Chinese. They are not allowed to own property. And so there's usually some non-Hispanic Anglo-Saxon white man who is the front or the face or the signature for Japanese financially backed operations, such as the Hickmont Cannery. Balfour Guthrie once again, right? Canning is king, and Blue Goose, again, is a Balfour Guthrie operation. In other words, it's their investments. Here in East County, we have the largest fruit drying operation in the nation. Yes, primarily in Oakley. We're looking at 40 acres of fruit drying. And these are not in sheds. These are on pallets, and they are hand cut, laid out in the sun to dry, sulfured, and packed and shipped around the world. Remember, this is all before the invention of the iced railroad car or the refrigerated railroad car. So too with canning in cans. Right? This is a drying shed without the shed. So vast that the pallets are transferred and moved around by a small locomotive. Yes, it's a little train. And of course, we're known for our apricots, delicious. And being part of the Blue Anchor California Fruit Exchange, which is in Sacramento, but primarily where are all the fruits coming from? Brentwood. There is a Blue Anchor California Fruit Exchange packing shed in Brentwood, goes right up to Sacramento, next stop, Reno. And as a matter of fact, with ice rail cars, you can pack in Brentwood in ice and make it all the way to Reno, where you have to re-ice to go across the Great Salt Lake Basin without rotten fruit. So ice and refrigeration with ice is key. But today, nope, it's not getting canned. It's you pick. Here we go, retail, right? It's better in Brentwood. Harvest time, come on out. Let's take a look at what's been going on in the county here. Now, here's our traditional map of Contra Costa County showing primarily the roads. Now, we are an early adopter of roads. Of course, we along East County are reliant on the rivers, just as the Mississippi is, to transport grain, fruits, vegetables, asparagus. This is the land of riverboats. Roads, not really. River transportation, really. But the Antioch Bridge going right across here to Sherman Island, put in 1928, it is the first bridge in the entire Bay Area to be built purposefully to connect Southern California, otherwise known as Contra Costa County South, to Northern California and Sacramento. Yes, 1928. Until then, you couldn't drive to Sacramento without taking a ferry across the bay, Oakland, Benicia, maybe even a train ferry across the Delta, the San Joaquin River, and the like. So in 28, we start thinking about ground transportation and bridging the water for the very first time. But you can see there are a lot of little roads out here, and it's not densely populated, but they're now by truck, not by river any longer. So we find, this density of roads out here, and one of the very first concrete highways, an experiment going between Byron and Stockton. It's a concrete road rather than asphalt. Highway 4 is coming in across here, specifically to get produce west, move the produce west. So it's a different world as we look at this map and take a look at this map. It's a bit apples and oranges, but I want to point something out to you in that we as a county are looking at a new general plan for Contra Costa County. We have to do this every 20 years by mandate, but it's very timely. In fact, it may be overdue because the county has changed so dramatically. Specifically, this map pertains to the urban limit line and pertinent to our East Town area. We're looking at this map. You're not able to see much, it's a little tiny, but notice the green area is agriculture, agricultural core, okay? Versus this brownish color called agriculture, open space, wetlands, parks, and other basically non-urban or recreation areas. Folks, lots of recreation areas all along here, right? Mount Diablo, right? Even here along the river, this is all basically open space. East Bay Regional Parks, which you'll hear a lot about next week from Beverly Lane, owns a lot of land out here, as does the state and federal government. Take a look, gang. See this little green area? That's called farming. That's called farming. This is the urban limit line. Here's Brentwood. And this little line right here is literally Sellers Avenue. You can go from tract homes to Sellers to the agricultural core of the entire county in approximately 20 feet. The only agriculture going on in the entire county of Contra Costa today is this little green area. That's it. And you can see Byron is at one end, and this is Sellers Avenue right here. Knightson is right on the cusp, but this is essentially, and the John Marsh House is right about here. This is it, folks. This is it. There are not 1,000 acres of agriculture left in our entire county. And this area here is UPIC. It's UPIC. With the two exceptions I mentioned earlier today. This is it. It's UPIC, it's farmers markets, it's farmers saying, I want to farm, but how can I make any money? I can't compete against the upper San Joaquin farmers, but I can sell retail. I can sell retail and still be in business. So this is not the upper San Joaquin of 1,000 acres of carrots. This is 20 acres of cherries. This is 40 acres of corn. It's a whole new world. And here you thought Eastern Contra Costa County was so cute and old and rural and 1,700 people. Folks, this is wall-to-wall houses. Wall-to-wall houses. And it goes out and includes, well, you can see Bethel Island is here. but the new Delta Coves is right here. It's amazing. I mean, I can't wait for the first flood, but this is all houses, all houses. Okay. But, you know, we do have a proud tradition. In Oakley during World War I, we had a Red Cross operation out there. Women's Club was wrapping bandages for the boys. Byron, Women's Club, Red Cross, wrapping bandages. Oakley, Brentwood, Byron, wrapping bandages. And everybody enlists and goes to war. This is the first enlistee and the first casualty, World War I from East County, Corporal Fredericks. But we're key also as we're proceeding through the early 20th century. This is Sheriff Veal. Sheriff Veal grows up on Veal Track near Knightson. He's an East County guy. He's the longest serving county sheriff in the nation's history. And when he heads the committee to talk about Contra Costa County at the Panama Pacific International Exhibition in San Francisco at 15, focus, there's Contra Costa County Day, Pittsburgh signs galore. This focus and the primary display at the Contra Costa Pavilion is all about the Byron Hot Springs. This is May Mead. She and her husband own the Byron Hot Springs, and she is the woman who is the county women's board chairperson for our county. Yes, a woman from Byron represents Contra Costa County. Of course, they own the most fabulous resort in the Bay Area, the world famous Byron Hot Springs. By the way, the Springs Hotel on the left, built in 1915 to handle the crowds from the PPIE fair, is still there today. It's a ruin, but it's still there. And hosting as it once did Clark Gable, the Spreckles divorcee, which was Gable's third wife. I hope you recognize this guy being entertained and feted at the Byron Hot Springs. You may know him as the governor of California, Earl Warren, or you know him as the Supreme Court Chief Justice, Earl Warren. So yeah, Byron Hot Spring is everywhere. And that, by the way, this little uniform from the Wizard of Oz, those uniforms were even worn at the Byron Hot Springs in the 60s when there were fairs out there. Fatty Arbuckle, famous star, and of course, Lefty O'Doul from the Seals. The baseball team practices at the Byron Hot Springs. But we have lots of history out in our area. Depression era, the AFL-CIO, early unionization of agricultural workers and strikes, good housing for immigrant transient workers. A community, even during the Depression, Thanksgiving in Brentwood, set out the tables, and the entire labor camp celebrates together. Hey. Well, I can go on and on because this is really one of my favorite topics here. And I'll encourage many of you to join me out in Brentwood, where I teach local history as part of the adult education program at Los Medanos College, Brentwood location. But I tell you, there's so much history in Brentwood to explore, as well as a delightful modern community for you to visit and enjoy. As they say, come on out. So thank you, everybody. And I'd like to encourage some questions from you now, please.
Okay. Carol, you know your stuff. So couple questions to lead us off. And in fact, your photograph or your screenshot is one of them. The building behind you, John Marsh House?
Yes.
Okay. The same person that asked that question also fell in love with your slides and wants to know, is there a book that has a large number of the slides that you used, and what would be the name and the author?
I'm gonna buy that person lunch. That's the best question ever. Well, you know, there are many. There aren't that many pictures of the John Marsh house. There's only one known picture of the original John Marsh adobe, which he built and lived in from 36 to when he built this stone house, and that was 56. Marsh actually never lived in this house. He was murdered as he was going to Pacheco. There is an illustrated large format book of Contra Costa County that has been done in reproduction. I will happily provide some of the names of these images. The John Marsh, there is a book called A Pioneer on Five Frontiers, History of John Marsh, and it has images of Marsh, his first wife, his son, his second wife, his daughter. The John Marsh Historic Trust website has a lot of these images, which you can just look at by going out to the John Marsh Trust website and their Facebook page. I would be remiss if I didn't include a lot of these pictures in the books that I've written. Sorry for the pitch, but yes,
okay.
the Brentwood book has many pictures of John Marsh and his property there. I particularly like this image because this is an image not only of the house, but this is the survey team that was surveying California in the government survey triangles, you know, the sections and townships government survey.
Mhm.
Mount Diablo is where we start. That's the original meridian from which everything in California was surveyed from the early 1850s on. And the people who are outside of this house are the survey team. And what's even better, this is a Muybridge image. And we know Muybridge because he's the guy that worked for Stanford that photographed the horses and proved that the horses, when they gallop, actually do leave the earth.
Yeah.
So, you know, a Muybridge image, can't get any better than that.
Yep.
So, they're all in black and white because God had not invented Kodachrome. So it's really the John Marsh Trust site where you'll see most of them. And I make it my business to publish as many of them as I can in any book that I write.
Okay. Let's stay on John Marsh.
Yes.
Why is he important to us?
Oh, man. He is the most important person in early California. I know you want to talk about lots of other people, but here's why he's so important. He is the very first non-Hispanic or even Hispanic white, any kind of flavor of white person to live away from the urban centers and the missions and the presidios. He is literally the first bravest man in California to live not in a settled area. He literally gets this acreage. He buys it for 500 California dollars, which are cattle hides, and 40,000 acres. And here he is. So that's number one. Number two, he is the man who is writing to the senators on the East Coast saying, come to California. And these letters are getting published in the newspapers. And they result in the first overland immigrants to come to California, 1846, prior to the gold rush. They're coming to California and they're coming to John Marsh's destination at his behest. He was going to run for governor of California in the next election, but he was murdered in 56. So he didn't run. But the reason he built this house was he knew he was going to be doing a lot of entertaining. Also, he's a very literary man, and this is a house of 7 gables. Why? Because of the book, one of his favorite novels,
Hey,
House
got
of
to do
7
it.
Gables. I love it.
So speaking of the house, is it still there?
Oh God, yes. Yay.
And where is it?
And it's in Brentwood.
Of course.
Of course, the world revolves around Brentwood.
Yeah.
What's fabulous about this is, yes, the house is there. It was stabilized thanks to the John Marsh Historic Trust, which wasn't government money. It was all private money from people in the area to stabilize it. It is now the gem in the middle of the newest, most recent state historic park in California.
Cool.
Yes. The house itself and the property at this point is open just once a year, but the land around it, including Round Valley, is open to the public for recreating. It is a state historic park. Yay. And it's huge.
And it's great that that house is still there.
Absolutely.
Is there a relationship between Los Medanos and Los Megranos?
Thank you. I can tell you're not a native Spanish language speaker.
Sorry.
Thank you. These are sort of Californio Spanish. Los Meganos with a G means the sand dunes. And there's Los Meganos Rancho is basically Pittsburgh and Bay Point.
Okay.
Originally. And the college is Los Meganos for that reason, because it was Pittsburgh oriented. Los Medanos is also a pidgin or Californio Spanish, referring to sand dunes.
Okay.
Because as you go north on the San Joaquin River and make the turn into Bethel Island, Oakley, those sand dunes there are the major geologic feature, home of endangered wildflowers. They're so beautiful. That basically was the beach when the interior of California was the Great Ocean Sea. It was a sea in Paleolithic, Neolithic times. Yeah. So the sand dunes are a major geographic function here. By the way, Tasajara, close to you in San Ramon, you're not going to find Tasajara in the dictionary because, again, it's sort of a pidgin early Californio Spanish. It basically means the place where we slaughter the meat.
Yeah.
Because Amador Valley was the cattle ranch for Mission San Jose. And if you're going to go slaughter the meat, you go to Tasajara to the creek and you slaughter it there so the blood can go down the creek. So that's Tasajara for you.
So I've got one for you too. couple of years ago, this museum did an exhibit on the Chinese railroad workers and where they wound up after the transcontinental was built. You brought up a slide about the Chinese and the asparagus crop.
Yes.
And then there was a slide also about the building of the levees. And I know that the Chinese workers did a lot of work on the dikes and the levees in the Delta area. Is this the same crew basically?
No, it's not the same crew. You should, remember during the gold mining era, Chinese were basically driven out on just about anything where a white man wanted to take over. So at a certain point, not only you have the Chinese Exclusion Acts and you're not allowed to, Chinese cannot immigrate in the US, but those that are left here or are here are relegated to essentially, well, they can't own property, real estate. They're relegated to basically 5 jobs. They're cooks, domestics, they're doing laundry, they're fishing, they are laborers. What did I miss here? Essentially, there's just 5 things you can do because those are the 5 things that the white men don't want to do. So labor, of course, they're building the railroads. Go from there. There's a great need for labor and building these berms, and then dikes is important. Remember the Po Valley in China? These people from China know how to build rivers and dams and dikes and all that. And you can fish, and the Sacramento River is a bounty of fish. Many of these farmers, that is, white men, are owning land. So they're owning the land, but they are not working the land. California's agricultural history is rooted in labor gangs. So the Chinese are building the levees, and then it's called, okay, now how would you like to share crop? Or not share crop, but how about I hire gangs of laborers to plant asparagus and then harvest asparagus and then process asparagus. And the entire delta from Sacramento to Rio Vista, Stockton, Brentwood is 10,000 acres of asparagus. And this is Chinese farm labor. I mean, the discrimination is so tough that the Chinese eventually are pushed and shoved into urban areas. They're living in urban areas. San Francisco, they may be in Chinatowns like Isleton or Locke, but these are urban environments, and they are essentially leaving the land, but many are still functioning as laborers on the land.
Okay.
That's how we farm in California.
Yeah. Well, Carol, I think that's it for questions.
Oh, no.
And so I want to thank you for coming with us this morning. And I learned a lot about the East Contra Costa County, and you represent the county very well. So thanks for coming on with us. And I'd like to thank everybody else for viewing this morning. If you missed any of our earlier programs, you can find them by visiting the museum's website at museumsrv.org. Today's program with Carol will appear early next week. And then join us next month, Thursday, March 16th at 11:30, when our museum's own Beverly Lane, as Carol mentioned, will talk about the history of East Bay Regional Parks. If you like these programs and want them to continue, we ask that you make a donation by going to the museum's homepage, museumsrv.org, and clicking on the Donate Now button. And we are also, as I mention every month, in need of volunteers. If you can give us some time, please contact the museum. For everybody, I hope you enjoyed today's presentation. Thank you again, Carol. Stay safe and thanks for watching.
Bye, everybody.